First of all, what I would say and what I would beg you to do in Armenia is to do what's the best for Armenia. That's what I'm trying to do for my country. There can be no model and no system that you can copy-paste. You will be doing, I'm sure, what's the best for your country's future. This is the best advice as a neighbor country we can give you, if at all I'm allowed to give you any advice. When it comes to Georgian experience, in the past, since 90s, there were a number of reforms in the judiciary of Georgia. In the past, one government would call the reform of the judiciary the reorganization of the judiciary, sending all the judges home and replacing them with new judges. To some extent, such a reform did work. To some extent, such a reform did not work. But it happened in Georgia. We cannot say that it can work or cannot work here. In the past, in Georgia, especially in the Supreme Court, a government proposed the then acting judges to take a pension and leave. Some of them voluntarily took such a decision, and they were quite happy with such a decision. Others refused. To some extent, this novelty called reform worked. To some extent, from today's perspective, I can say that it didn't work. But when we came to power, it was in November 2012, my team in the government and the Ministry of Justice team, we were responsible for putting in place reform of the judiciary. And the question was there. Either we would go for a new reorganization of the judiciary, letting all the judges go, replacing them, or we would reform not the people but the laws, encouraging the people to follow the laws. This was a hot debate within the team 7 years ago. And then, analyzing past experiences of ours, national experiences, good experience, bad experience, impacts, results, the then Prime Minister, currently President of the ruling party, advised us to follow the second path, reforming the institution, fighting the bad laws, not fighting the people we could consider as being bad people. I can tell you that this was not a very popular approach. People would ask for something else. But with difficulties, we followed the unpopular path. And today, and myself, I received many criticism, but as you see, I did survive somehow. Today, we can be proud of those 3 waves of reform of the judiciary, which were examined by the Venice Commission, in some parts praised, in some parts not praised. But I can even tell you that I do not really care if the Venice Commission report is not 100% positive. we should be doing what's the best for our countries, and we are responsible before next generations, not the Venice Commission, but it's always very important to hear the alternative view and the authoritative body like the Venice Commission. And I'm speaking here as a former civil servant of the Council of Europe. So these reforms paid, and as I mentioned in my opening remarks, we decided 2 years ago with my first deputy sitting here to measure the reforms we implemented and to measure them with the help of the outsider organization, and this was quite expensive, but it was Ipsos France. Not any Ipsos working in the world, but Ipsos France. And the survey showed that Georgian society, 52% thinks that thanks to these reforms, the Georgian judiciary is more independent than before, is more trustworthy than before, and they think still that the Georgian judiciary is too slow, is too expensive, and they do think that the reforms should continue. For me, it was a good result. Not 100% positive, but good result. Good result because I do think that next Minister of Justice of Georgia should have something to do. I cannot do everything. Next Minister of Justice needs to have some things to do. So I leave another portion of the work to the next Minister of Justice of Georgia to continue. But my ambition is to leave behind something which is worth continuing, which is objectively positive, that a reasonable person, next Minister of Justice of Georgia, will be willing to build something on. This is maybe a long answer, I'm sorry for, but there is no recipe for Armenia. There is no recipe for Georgia. We are trying to do what's the best for our country, taking advice from everyone, and we are here today to take advice from you as well, because you are progressing very quickly and you are touching the fields we have not touched maybe yet. So this forum is for that as well.